I'll tell you from my experience in Octopus Television exactly what draws the biggest audiences all over the world.
Is Yardwork actually interesting?
I like the self-exploding weeds.
We're going to dismantle this mountain, boys.
Hi, welcome to Comedy Parenting Radio, the only show that keeps detailed records of UFPs.
What are UFPs?
Unidentified flying pancakes.
You mean the burnt ones that you throw out the window?
Yeah, we have quite the extensive record of them. This week is a really, really big week for Comedy Parenting Radio. It's our 3rd anniversary.
Wow, it only seems like 2.5.
Last week's show was radio theater called The Internet Disappeared, and so that'd be our 3rd anniversary show. We entered a new era this week.
What's the era?
Sierra, some mountains in California.
What era have we entered, Dad?
Today's statistics show that more people are listening to Comedy Parenting Radio using a smart speaker than a desktop computer.
The future is now, old man.
Windows 95. Play me Comedy Parenting Radio. Yeah.
Today we're going to be doing a show that absolutely nobody wants to do. Yard work.
Aw, come on!
Okay, forest animals, kids are coming to the forest, and it's up to us to make their visit a good one. Sparrow, have you practiced the most popular bird songs for the year?
Of course.
Catchy. I like it. River, how's the temperature?
It's a refreshing 52 degrees, man.
I love it. Turtle.
He's not here yet, man.
He's late every morning. Okay. Squirrel.
The forest has been preparing just for you. To learn more about cool things to do in the forest, visit discovertheforest.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Ooga chaka, ooga, ooga, ooga chaka.
Comedy Parenting Radio, delaying flights around the globe.
Ooga, ooga,
I can't stop this feeling deep inside of me.
It's Yard Work at Comedy Parenting Radio.
The worst day in the world. We have to do yard work.
I'll be just fine with yard work as long as payday comes.
Unfortunately, you're working for family.
We have to have full disclosure at the beginning of the show. Studio B up here at Chalet Begley has 0 yard. Is that not correct?
That is correct in a sense.
We don't even have any yard at all.
We have no yard, but we have a leach field.
We have a cliff.
We have over 45 acres of mountainside that we can go pick up all the...
Rocks on?
Yeah.
That's our yard work.
We're going to dismantle this mountain, boys.
When we built this place 10 years ago, I was determined not to have a yard at all. 0. No yard to mow. Not one mower. We have a weed eater, but it's blown apart in a million pieces in the garage.
We're using a weed whacker currently.
So we don't have a yard.
And why the weed eater is blown apart is because someone put the wrong type of gas. They put in a flammable gas that heats up in the sun. And explodes.
You folks out there in radio podcast land, don't ever put flammable gas in your weed eater. Just use...
What kind of gas do you put in?
Water's a lot safer than the flammable gas.
I mean, yeah, your engine won't explode if you fill it with water.
What about napalm?
Why did Dad not want to have a yard up here at the chalet?
Because yard work was his job for a long time.
I've done more yard work than most people have in 12 lifetimes. Maybe 24 for some people. I've mowed grass for everyone, from the lowliest of the lowly country bumpkins all the way up to Sam Walton.
And you've mowed from Indiana to Nebraska.
Didn't you ruin Sam Walton's sprinkler system with a lawnmower?
I did, but he forgave me.
He promoted you to customer.
I have the distinguished honor of wrecking Sam Walton's sprinkler system with a lawnmower.
How did you wreck it?
I just went over it and a bunch of water came squirting out. He just had me run down to Walmart and get a hose. I stood in his yard watering for about 8 days straight.
Until they could get a replacement sprinkler.
Yeah.
Wait, did you seriously go and mow Sam Walton's lawn and break his sprinkler system?
Yeah, all in the same day.
All in the same 5 minutes.
Yeah. It was a Friday afternoon.
It sounds like the beginning of a comedy sketch.
We all know the reason that you didn't want to have a yard up here because that was your job, but is there any other reasons? Are there any other reasons?
Yeah, one time I was mowing thistles for a guy with a tractor.
Yeah.
And behind the tractor, you have a mower that's 5 feet wide.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a lawn, but it was grass. I'm mowing this grass, and it has thistles that are taller than the tractor.
Whoa.
There were some thistles that were somewhere between 6 and 8 feet tall.
Who is putting fertilizer on the thistles?
The thistles are the only ones that sucked up the fertilizer. In any event, I'm mowing these thistles, and so there's thistle down, that's the fluffy stuff, floating all over in my face. There are dry, crunchy thistles that are bending backwards and smacking me as I'm driving. And the best part of all?
What?
They were in full bloom, so there were bees everywhere.
Oh, no.
Thousands of bees all day long swarming around me.
No, not the bees.
I'm pretty sure that used to be a form of torture.
Yeah, well, now it was just me on a tractor mowing thistles.
Do you think this was punishment for breaking Sam Walton's sprinkler system?
I think the guy that I was working for and Sam Walton are good friends. Anyway, so I just don't want to have a yard to mow at all.
But we still do have thistles.
Steven.
Who said that?
Me, down here.
Ugh, what are you, a yellow booger?
I'm a banana slug, Steven.
What are you doing in my room?
I'm your sense of adventure. It's been a long time since we've had an adventure in the forest.
Mom took me to the forest last year.
I'm a slug, Steven. It took me a long time to get here.
You're right. I should get out.
Yeah, the forest is not that far away.
Hey, Mom!
Come to the forest where the more adventurous you lives. Check out discovertheforest.org for cool places nearby. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council.
This is Crazy Russian Dad. You're listening to Comedy Parenting Radio. I was never a teenager. There were no teenagers in Soviet Russia. I declare war on teenagers.
Dad, if we don't have a yard, why do the neighbors always want us to do their yard work?
Because they hear that your dad used to work for Sam Walton.
So we must be good. It's a genetic thing.
It's in your DNA to pull thistles and mow grass.
It's a trait passed down from generation to generation.
I'll bet your relatives back in Switzerland were really good with the big weed whackers that they had back then.
Those were scythes.
Yeah, and they would, just like chop down big fields of grass.
Grass?
For
You
nobody.
mean wheat?
For no reason.
Oats? Barley? The stuff they use to eat and survive?
What's the most interesting yard work you've done ever?
The most interesting yard work that I've done ever is in the fall. We were living in Glenwood Springs, and it was a really, really windy day, and for some odd reason, we were supposed to go out and rake leaves on a really, really, really windy day. So you'd rake the leaves into a pile, and by the time you got the leaves on this side of the yard into the pile, the leaves on that side of the yard were already back in the yard because the wind took them over there, and you'd rake those leaves back up, and then they just go all over again, and it was like trying to, what's the name of the guy that rolled?
Sisyphean. Sicilian. The Sicilian guy that rolled the pizza uphill all the time.
Yeah, the Sicilian guy.
The pizza kept rolling back down on him. Interesting. Is this the first time you ever raked leaves?
Yeah.
No, this was punishment for Dad breaking Sam Walton's sprinklers.
Courtney, I have a question. How much yard work have you actually done?
Enough to talk about it. Why?
You're always more of the babysitter.
I was watching their kids so they wouldn't get run over by the lawnmower.
That counts as yard work. Who else has done some yard work that was interesting?
Is yard work actually interesting?
That is the question.
We wouldn't be having a show about yard work if it wasn't interesting. I think people checked their local listings and went, whoa, there's a show about yard work coming up. Come on. Just listen to this show on Saturday instead of that other stupid show you listen to that's about
home improvement.
I wasn't going to use the word home improvement. Yeah, but home improvement.
Yeah, don't use the word.
I mean, home improvement shows are the only thing that's on Saturday, pretty much.
So really, people should just listen to this podcast only on Saturday.
Yeah.
I haven't actually had a really bad yard work experience yet.
I haven't had a really good yard work experience yet.
Well, I would actually have to say that I have had some pretty good yard work experience. But the last time that I did yard work, which was about 2 weeks ago, late July, and it was the first time that I used a weed eater. And I did not like it because I kept getting it clogged, and then it would stop up the motor, and that thing's supposed to be spinning super fast.
Like 10 to 30,000 RPM.
Yeah, revolutions per minute, and then...
That's quite the margin.
And then not 10, but anyways. And then the engine starts smoking.
Oh, no.
And so then you have to shut it off and unclog the weeds.
And it hasn't run since.
And
why not just let go of the throttle?
Because it kills itself. That's what happens when you let go of the throttle.
So it's a really old one.
I think that's how they all are, Joshua.
No, you just had an old one.
That's all the ones that I've ever seen.
Yeah, I haven't seen
the one that
one.
I had, you didn't have to hold down the throttle at all. You just pulled the motor.
Anyways, this was difficult because you'd have to hold it with one hand, and it didn't have a sling, so it kept on teeter-tottering because it's not very balanced where you're trying to hold it, and then you try to pull start it.
I got to use one of the original weed eaters.
How original is it?
It didn't have an electric motor. You had to do like a hand crank, and then things spin around, and there was like this little piece of rope that went around.
Oh, so you had like the original ones, not even the ones that were powered by a water wheel.
I know, and it didn't even cut the grass. It just spun around, and they used to advertise on TV, someday these are going to cut grass.
So that's where you got your pitching arm.
Yeah. There's more about yard work coming up right after this.
Right after this short break.
There is?
Understanding your finances is a key to a strong financial future. Don't be the one who gets left behind. Visit feedthepig.org for tools and tips to get started on the path to financial stability. This message brought to you by the American Institute of CPAs and the Ad Council.
Comedy Parenting Radio, ruining more birthday parties than that clown you hired.
We're back with more yard work.
We're front with more yard work.
Just what we want, more yard work.
Speaking of more yard work, I have a story about that. When I was about 8, I got hired with my brother to go to a family from church's yard, and they had like 1 million little teeny tiny willow saplings that had got planted in their yard on accident. They were about 3 inches tall, all over the yard. We had to pull them all up.
By hand?
By hand. So we spent the whole day pulling up all these little willows, and then the next week, they were all back.
Maybe they came from underground.
What is your favorite weed to pull?
I'll pull pretty much any weed as long as the ground's wet.
I like the self-exploding weeds.
You don't have any preferences? Like, whenever I go to a job, if it's like a certain kind of weed, I can pull it and be really done really quickly.
I like the weeds that pull themselves out of the ground.
I like the helium weeds, too. They're kind of cool. You don't have to put them in a basket. They just float away. Yep. Attach a note to the weed and let it float. Please return this weed if found. What's your favorite weed to pull, Elijah?
Probably thistles.
What kind of thistles?
Any kind of thistles.
What planet are you from?
I'm from the planet where you don't get poked.
Don't you have to hold the thistle a special way to pull it?
Well, yes. At the very base, you have to peel off those last 4 inches of leaves before you get to the base, and then you grab onto there and you just pull.
Don't you have to wear special gloves for this?
Welding gloves?
Full plate armor.
Not really. I just had some thin leather gloves when I did it, and I didn't get hurt.
I happen to know that the goatskin gloves are terrible for pulling thistles.
Goatskin?
Yeah, they're thin. They're too thin.
Driving gloves are not made for pulling thistles.
These were not driving gloves. These were at a farm and feed store, and it said, soft, supple, goatskin gloves. I'm thinking, My hands are soft and my hands are supple, and I'm going to be pulling thistles. I want the soft, supple gloves.
Maybe it's for like a 10 by 10 garden.
Made to pull up daisies.
I'm thinking it's made to pet lettuce. Here, little lettuce. You can grow bigger now.
Made to pet kale.
Don't talk to me about kale. Josiah, we haven't heard a lot about yard work from you.
What's a yard?
It's like that green stuff you see when you go to the park.
Oh.
You've been listening to Comedy Parenting Radio, Yard Work. I want to thank you guys for coming up in the studio.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
When you guys go,
Yeah?
Yes.
Yep.
there's a really big patch of thistles right outside the front door. Why don't you just go ahead and whack on those for a while?
I'll grab the gloves.
They'll be gone, but I'm expecting a large paycheck.
Bye-bye.
You get nothing. You lose. Good day, sir.